I'm at the Photography Show live TV studio with Zed Nelson, an internationally acclaimed documentary photographer. And you've been up on the Superstage talking, Zed, haven't you? How did that go for you?
Yeah, well, I think. It went well. Good questions. That's usually a sign that at least people are,
They're paying
engaged.
They're paying attention if you get good questions.
Yeah. So if I can gauge it by that, surprisingly well.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about documentary photography, first of all. Why you ended up being a documentary photographer, and kind of how you see documentary photography. I mean, it's telling a story with images, or is that an oversimplification on my behalf?
For me, documentary photography is appealing because it gives you a voice, in a way. It gives you an opportunity to have an opinion. In a way, there was a sort of old school of the idea that we're supposed to be impartial. They were just recording somehow the truth. But I think I gave up on that idea a long time ago. And more, I'm interested in having an opinion, drawing attention to things that I think are interesting or worthy of scrutiny or need to be changed. And that's quite an old-fashioned ideal, actually, in photography, the fact that we can do something with the work. But I still have that idea, even though I'm more cynical. And I suppose the work that I try and do is more complex. So it looks at sort of social ideas or phenomenons. I mean, I did a book about the beauty industry, and it really questions why we're all being brainwashed in a certain way. Or in America, when I did the gun project, it questions why half of America are willing to make no changes whatsoever.
Well, I was going to ask you, that's Gun Nation that you're talking about, and obviously, again, guns are in the news in America for all the wrong reasons. Just tell me a little bit more about the project and how you went about creating Gun Nation.
Well, I mean, I did the book. I mean, the first picture I took was 18 years ago, and then it was published about 16 years ago. Last year, I went back and made a film for The Guardian, tracking down the original people from the project. When I did the project, first of all, the question was simple. It was like, why do 30,000 people get shot and killed in America every year, and why is that all right? Why is no one questioning it?
So it starts with a pretty simple question, really. That's the whole nub of the project.
Yeah, a simple question, and then the exploration was trying to dispel a stereotype. So the idea was that there was a gun problem in America and it was gangs. And my point was, no, the gun problem is that there's a huge manufacturing industry that pours weapons into society and there's no laws that govern them. And people can buy a semi-automatic assault rifle when you're 18. On Facebook now, you don't even have to have a license or any training. So to me, it's like, okay, that's interesting. Why would that be? And so then the project becomes an exploration of that, and to really try and interrogate it. And yeah, the film went back to say, it's even worse now. It was supposed to get better. And so the film went back to really, really question people about and say, look, there's been all of these school shootings. Why are you so adamantly against even like modest control measures? And these are the questions I'm interested in.
Sure, no, I understand that. Now, talk to me a little bit about how you actually work, because you must get yourself into some dangerous or at least uncomfortable situations, because I guess you can't work unless you're in those uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, I mean, it can range. I mean, a lot of my early work was in conflict areas, and they were much more dangerous in a way. I mean, and I went to Afghanistan, and in fact I was in an ambush, and my colleague was shot, and my interpreter was shot as well. And so I've experienced that immediate and horrifying danger of being exposed.
Do you not get it when you're there looking through the camera? Do you find yourself getting into a bubble a little bit, and you're not noticing the danger so much, or are you always aware in the background what's going on?
I think you're aware. I mean, unless you lose it or something. But I think often you make decisions that maybe in retrospect you might have thought, no, I needed to stop and think about this a bit more. I tend to be quite thoughtful, and I'm always make sure if I go somewhere dangerous, I'm there for a very good reason. I never just do it for the money or because it's a big story. I tend to, I like subjects which are important but often not really talked about or talked about in the wrong way. So, you know, it's harder and harder and more dangerous actually going to conflict zones because there used to be a sense that somehow you weren't a target. But I think more and more there is a fear of even being seen as a target. So that's a big problem. But essentially, I mean, going to America and doing a thing about gun culture, that's not dangerous. You know, yes. I mean, actually, the most dangerous situations were being on a gun range. There was one in Las Vegas where there was just no control, and all these teenagers were handling guns and firing and turning around with assault rifles. And I actually walked out of there and said to the gun shop owner, "That's kind of scary in there." And he said, "Oh, I would never go in there." And I was so that was a dangerous situation, but just due to stupidity
so
more
health,
than
health and safety did not exist, is what you're saying in that situation.
And as a freelance, you have to really be thoughtful and look after yourself. There's no one else looking after you.
So tell me how, we're at the photography show. There's stands full of cameras and lenses. What's your kit of choice?
Well, I still shoot a lot on film.
Okay.
So I still have a Mamiya RZ camera, which I love. I shoot on a Mamiya 7 rangefinder film camera. I also shoot on Nikon digital if I shoot 35mm. I shoot film on Canon C300, and then I've got all the Canon lenses for that.
So you've not left anybody out almost at the moment. You're going through everyone.
I've even got a new Hasselblad. So I don't want this to make it sound like I'm equipment obsessed, but there are certain cameras for certain jobs. You know, and so sometimes it's just choosing the right thing. I don't think there's like a miracle camera. It's just some are really good at doing
I wish there was one miracle camera.
Yeah.
Make life easier for everybody, wouldn't it?
I should be sponsored by everyone really, but now I've probably made myself unsponsorable, haven't I?
Well, don't worry, we'll cut that bit out. It'll be absolutely fine. So, just kind of in terms of what's coming up for you, what projects have you got on the go, or are you about to start?
I've started a big new project, which is too early to really talk about because you kind of get a bit nervous about it, and until you kind of own it as your own.
So no exclusive here then?
Not really, yeah. I mean, but it's something that I've begun, and it will take a couple of years. Like most of these long-term projects. And I've been also making a film looking at gentrification in Hackney in London.
Okay, why Hackney?
I live there, and I did a book.
You just don't want to have to travel. It's a nice, easy one.
Is that what you mean? I did a book called A Portrait of Hackney.
Okay.
When I finished Love Me, I'd been to 18 different countries doing the project about vanity and the beauty industry. And at the end of it, I just didn't want to get on any more aeroplanes. And I didn't want to go to any more beauty conventions, and I just wanted to be somewhere local. And actually I started photographing in my area like a student, like in the old school way of just wandering, to remind myself the fun of taking pictures. And so I did that. It was published as a book called A Portrait of Hackney. That sold really oddly well. I think
why oddly? You sound surprised that it did well.
Photo books generally aren't mass-selling items,
sure.
But this one's on its third edition. I think it's because it's actually cheaper than a normal photography book, and also just sometimes a project captures something of the moment. So the idea of gentrification in this sort of hipster area of London, for some reason that's become of interest.
Yeah, so just to kind of finish off here, in terms of if somebody, a youngster who wants to get into documentary photography, would you encourage them to maybe to look just outside the front door, to get a project going there, to start developing their style that way?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, there's often this feeling that you have to travel the world and go to the furthest point. And I think I had that view originally, but I think actually that idea has changed more and more. And I think the idea of always just looking for the exotic is less interesting and less valid than questioning things that surround us, societal things or cultural things. And those things can be done on our doorsteps. So I don't think you have to go and risk your life in a war zone at all to make a body of work that's really interesting. You just need a theme and a focus and to spend enough time looking at something, and sort of extraordinary things come out.
Okay, sounds fascinating. And just to finish then, Zed, for people who weren't able to listen to you up on the super stage, they can see your work online, I'm guessing. So what's your website address?
Well, it's just my name, www.zednelson.com.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So make sure you check that out. It's been fascinating. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.